I'm Jordan Belfort, and this is Sales School. NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Bottom line, it gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. It's everything you need all in one place. In fact, over 21,000 companies are using NetSuite right now, so you'll be in great company right alongside them. So let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/school. And here's the operative thing, okay? There is essentially, as Bandler explained the whole thing to me, because he recognizes the challenges of anchoring, because it's such a powerful process that if it works, if you really set an anchor, it's like unbelievable. You know what's a great example of an anchor? You ever been in your car and you're driving down the road, you're not speeding, right? But all of a sudden you see the flashing lights and you hear, in a microsecond, your heart's beating fast, right? Your pulse is racing, your height, before you even know it. Before you have any chance to see if it's for you, someone else, your body instantly, your autonomic nervous system instantly reacts and puts you into a state of absolute awareness and worry, and fear, right? That's an example of an anchor. It's only 3 seconds later, maybe, when you see it's on the other side of the road, or this cop is passing you by, that your pulse starts to calm down again, your breathing relaxes. That's an anchor. So why is it an anchor like that gets set naturally, and it's so hard to set an anchor for certainty or confidence? Why is that? Well, here's the answer. That anchors only get set when you're at this is the $1 million answer to the whole thing. When you're at the tippy top of the state. And then at that moment, when you're really at the tippy top of the state, something weird, something that you can't ignore, like a flashing light, a siren, or a loud bell in the case of Pavlov's, something gets introduced naturally that causes you to associate the two. See, here's the deal. In reality, it only takes one time to set an anchor. We could set an anchor in one shot, but you would have to be at the absolute tippy top of the state. So imagine 1 to 100, right? And 100 means this is like absolute certainty at a level. It's not just like absolute certainty. It's like absolute certainty times 100. It's like the highest level to the point where it's a conviction, like that level of yet it's such a high level. So I really want to instill in you that's what it can't just be I'm really certain. That might be at a 92. Okay, or an 88, or a 95. You have to be at 100 to set the anchor. That's what happens. So what happens at the Tony Robbins events is he does as good as a job as any human being could possibly do to get you feeling as good as you can, all right? And yet you scream, yes, make your move. He says, make your move. I went to an event, it's great, right? Make your move. What do you do, right? My move is this, right? Okay, but here's the deal. I don't care how loud you yell, how hot the dancers might be or they're not, how big Tony's hands are, how loud the music is, in that moment, it is virtually impossible to get yourself into a state of absolute anything. Meaning the high, it's not organic, it's manufactured. It's very hard to manufacture something at the highest level. It's like a hologram. It's hollow. It doesn't have all the depth and the texture of the real thing. For instance, what's a time in your life when you were so absolutely positively certain? Go back to a time in your life. Well, what you're going to do right now, I'm going to give you a few seconds. Think about it. Go back to a time in your life when you're absolutely certain. Now, if you're in sales, like most of you are, it's probably going to be after you closed a great sale. Imagine that moment after you close an awesome sale, right? And you're like, and you work really hard, you're selling, and you say yes, and you felt great. That's an organic state of absolute certainty. Because it really happened in the real world. It's natural, it occurred. You don't have to force yourself. So if I say to you, go back to a time in your life, right after you close a big deal, you'll go, and I'm going to show you ways, I'm going to go through this exercise in a moment now, and I'm going to go back and actually show you how to intensify the feelings of certainty from a memory, right? But here's the deal, because that's NLP. So NLP anchoring basically is you go back to a time in your life, and when you are absolutely certain or absolutely clear, right, or feeling absolutely confident, and go back and imagine that, go in your mind's eye and imagine, and we'll go through this in a moment, right? And then I try to amplify that by using certain techniques I'm going to teach you in a second, right? And I get you into this manufactured, and again, let's use the big M word, I get you into this manufactured state of absolute certainty. No matter how hard I try, no matter how much you visualize, I just gotta tell you the God's honest truth, I have never been able to myself, nor have I ever seen anyone that really was able to get themselves to the 100 level, 100 manufacturing. You can't get there. The night I invented the straight line system, that was my anchor. When they say go back to a time in your life when you were feeling absolutely certain. So for me, I go back to that night when I invented the straight line, and I still remember it like it was yesterday, and these 12 guys were sitting in front of me, and they were all negative, and all of a sudden the words came out, don't you guys get it? Every salesman said, that was my first words, watch, it's a straight line. And I watched their faces like, and then I couldn't believe it myself because I was like, what the fuck, where did this come from? It's like, it's just channeling information, right? And in a period of 3 hours, I took these 12 guys who couldn't close a fucking door, and they became world-class closers like that. And then every day I trained them and so forth, and this straight line developed just like that. And over 3 months, and he wrote everything down, it became a system, right? I go back to that memory, and I promise you this, no matter how hard I try, I can never feel quite as great or quite as certain as I did that night, back in 1988. Can't do it. I'm not a magician. You can't. No one can do it, right? Then I'll say, let me stack another memory. I'll go back to a time I did a seminar in front of a guy you might know, Frank Kern. So Frank Kern, great internet marketer, had an event here in San Diego. I did a speech there, and I was actually selling a product afterwards. And after, it was this great speech I gave. Everyone loved it. Everyone was clapping. And by the time I was done, and I started saying, hey, I have this product, they're like, don't even sell us. We all want to buy. They all ran into the back of the room and bought. And I remember that feeling of right when I saw them all running to the back, lining up 500 people to buy my product. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, naturally, I had that feeling.
All right, listen, you don't need to tell me that running a business is hard work. But if you're still using QuickBooks and spreadsheets, chances are that you're making it far more difficult than it needs to be. That's why it is time to upgrade now to NetSuite by Oracle. Stop paying for multiple systems. Don't give you the information you need when you need it, and ditch all those spreadsheets and old, outdated software programs that you've outgrown, and just upgrade now. NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Bottom line, it gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. It's everything you need all in one place. Best of all, NetSuite is for everyone. Whether your business is doing $1 million or $100 million a year, you're going to save a ton of money and a ton of time as well with NetSuite. In fact, over 21,000 companies are using NetSuite right now. So you'll be in great company right alongside them. So let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/school.
So that being said, let me take you through how NLP anchoring works. That's phase one. So you have two sides to the coin here. You have NLP anchoring, which is what Dr. Bandler invented. It's great. And again, in my case, I essentially stood on the shoulders of a genius, and I invented something that I believe, and I know for sure is much more effective in the world of sales and business, and I created something called olfactory anchoring. Olfactory anchoring essentially builds I give Bam the credit here because I built on all of his learnings, but I add two things to it that solve the two primary problems that prevent Bandler's method from being easily utilized by people in the sales and business world. Okay, so let me explain those two things right now and take you through NLP anchoring very quickly, then we'll stack olfactory anchoring on top. So here's the deal. There's two things about NLP anchoring that make it really, really hard to use in the real world. Number one, first problem is I said you can't get to the tippy top of the state. In other words, in NLP, the first step they'll say is, okay, you pick a state. Let's say you want to anchor in certainty. So that's your first step. Pick a state, certainty. Step two, go back in your memories, go back in your mind's eye, and go back to a time in your life when you were feeling absolutely certain. And close your eyes and think of that moment. And I want you now to stand certain. So you try to manufacture this state of certainty based in a memory. Almost impossible to do, if not impossible. Very, very hard to do. Rare indeed that people can actually execute that and it works. And the second thing is, remember, is that the anchor, which in the case of Pavlov's dogs was the bell. What did I say about the bell? I said the bell was loud enough to what? Wake the dead. I said that for a reason, because the anchor, the sound, whatever it might be, has to be severe enough and memorable enough that it shocks your senses and overwhelms all your senses, cuts through everything. It's unmissable basically, and bam. So if you are at the tippy top of the state and introduced an unforgettable anchor and an unforgettable sound, like whatever it might be, bam, you can set a state. But imagine if, let's say you could get to the tippy top of the state and you knocked on someone's door and they opened the door and you were like, gong, and you had a buzzer in your pocket. You let off a buzzer and I say, what the fuck? So the second thing is that it's very hard to actually find an anchor. What's your anchor? What soundings? What are you going to use here to essentially lock that state in? Now, when you go to a Tony Robbins event, they'll say, squeeze your hands together and scream the word yes. So it's the word yes, which is a good word, right? They say yes, and it feels good. Say yes, and it feels really good, right? And when I'm in a live event, I'll have everyone scream yes. I want to start off that way, right? And versus the word no. It's like a fart. No. It's a shitty word, right? Yes is an empowered word. And by the way, before I invented this, about 7 years ago, and Stratton, I had them scream yes, and I had them squeeze their hands together. So their nails were digging into their palms, so they felt it. They felt it. They yelled the word yes, and they had them, making a move, right? That's what I did back in the day in 1989, 88, right? But that doesn't work very well in the real world. How do you do that in like an office setting or before you knock on? It doesn't work, right? So that being said, these are the two things that trip people up. They can't get into the real absolute 100 of a level state, and they don't have a real anchor to set. Like, what's the anchor? How do you have a siren go off? Something like that doesn't really work though, right? So I tried to use NLP anchoring to no avail. It just didn't work. Didn't take for me, right? And I found myself in situations in 1980. It was in 2009 when I was really on tour, and I had to snap into states of certainty all the time. And I was jet lagged. I needed something really powerful, and that's what inspired me to come up with this olfactory anchoring. So here's how NLP anchoring works. NLP anchoring, very quickly, is based on the following steps. Number one, choose a state that you want to anchor, right? Step two, go back and search a memory, go for a root memory where you were actually in that state. Go back to a moment in time when you were in that state. Step three, use the power of the brain to essentially manipulate this memory to intensify it. And I'll explain how we do that in a second. So imagine, make the memory more clear, make it brighter, make it louder. I'll show you how you do that, right? And then the next step is to link it to a sound or something, or a nails digging in the word yes, a word, a sound, something, right? Link it to an anchor. And 5, okay, repeat the process again and again until it sets. That's NLP in a nutshell.